All right, what's going on, guys? Happy New Year and welcome to the year 2022. We've all made it after again another year of horrible stress, but we are now starting anew again. And speaking of anew, we are starting a new playoff uh, tournament coming up this Saturday. That this was a fantacular finish, I'd have to say. I think that Chargers and Raiders game was the best game of the entire regular season, and I guess they do say for a reason they save the best things for last. So hopefully our playoffs will be just as exciting as that showdown on Sunday night. So without further ado, let's move on and meet the playoff teams for the 2022 playoffs. So starting with the AFC, we got in the number one seed with the first round bye, the Tennessee Titans at 12-5, and they are in the playoffs for the third year in a row. At the second seed, we got the Kansas City Chiefs, also at 12-5. They are in for the seventh consecutive year, so kudos, hats off to that. That is quite an impressive feat, I'd have to say. Anyway, in the third seed, we got the Buffalo Bills at 11-6. They are also in for the third year in a row. And then the fourth seed, we got the Cincinnati Bengals finishing at 10-7, winning the AFC North, which I don't believe anyone who doesn't live in the Cincinnati metro area would have predicted back in September, but here we are. So congrats to them for being one of the, I'd say, funnest surprises of the season. And then for the number 5 seed, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at 10-7. This is their first playoff berth since 2016. Going back to the Bengals, actually, that's their first playoff berth since 2015. I forgot to mention. And then for the Raiders, it's the first one since 2016, and this is also their first playoff berth as a team while representing the city of Las Vegas as opposed to Oakland or Los Angeles. Moving on, we have the New England Patriots at the 6th seed. They also finished 10-7. They are back in the playoffs after missing it last year. So this is their first berth since 2019. And then in the 7th seed, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at 9-7-1, and they are in for the second year in a row. And I'm pretty sure all the Steelers fans are collectively holding their breaths in that just absolute chaotic Sunday night game. But you made it. You are here. Congratulations. You don't need to stress until Sunday night when you play the Chiefs, and we will get to that in a sec. But then we got to also check out our NFC playoff teams. So starting at the number 1 seed, we got the Green Bay Packers at 14-3. This is their third consecutive playoff berth, and they, on top of that, they have also finished 3 seasons in a row with 13 wins, and they are the first team in NFL history to do that. So again, I tip my hat to that impressive feat. And then moving on to the second seed, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 13-4. They are back in the playoffs for the second year in a row, but this is also their first NFC South Divisional champ since the year 2007. The very first year I started watching NFL football. It's been quite a while, to say the least. So now to the third seed, we got the Dallas Cowboys at 12-5. If you're unfamiliar with my channel, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan, but before you get mad at me in the comments for liking that, just remember, we all make mistakes. I ended up a Dallas Cowboys fan. I know you don't like that, but hey, it is what it is. And I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I am proud. Anyway, let's stop rambling there. This is the Cowboys' first playoff berth since the year 2018. They are back after missing the playoffs the last 2 seasons. And then let's see, to the 4th seed, Los Angeles Rams at 12-5. They are back in the playoffs for the second year in a row. I believe, yeah, they missed in 2019 and they were in as a wild card in 2020. So yeah, second year in a row for the Rams. And then at the 5th seed, we got the Arizona Cardinals at 11-6. They are back in the playoffs for the first time since 2015, just like the Cincinnati Bengals. So welcome back, Arizona, and welcome back, Cincinnati. And then we're moving on. We got the 6th seed San Francisco 49ers at 10-7. They are back in the playoffs after missing it last year. And then lastly, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the 7th seed with the record of 9-8. They are also back after missing it last year. All right, now before I get to the predictions, what I like to do is predict awards recipients. So with that being said, I have the MVP going to Aaron Rodgers for the second year in a row. It was indeed very difficult to decide between Rodgers and Tom Brady, but I just ended up going with Rodgers just because I just felt he was much more I think just complete, despite having the lower paper numbers and statistics. And I just think he has just a bigger impact. I think he just has the biggest impact to any team in the league, and I feel like we might be seeing that next year. Because I just not to get off topic, but I don't think he's going to be with Green Bay next season. So anyway, moving on for Offensive Player of the Year, I am choosing Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. Once again, extremely difficult to choose between Kupp and Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. However, I went with Cooper Kupp because he has a lot more stronger competition against wide receivers than Taylor does against running backs, and yet Cooper Kupp still won the Triple Crown against above all of them, and I just think that needs to be rewarded. And I believe Cooper Kupp also beat Jonathan Taylor in all-purpose. No, actually, I take that back. I think Jonathan Taylor won in all-purpose yards because of his receiving yards, but I think Kupp at least had more receiving yards than Taylor did rush yards. I don't remember that off the top of my head, but I don't. That's not the main point. It's just the fact that I think Cooper Kupp has had a bigger offensive. I think he's just a more better player and had just a better offense season. Whether you even look at it statistically or not. All right, and then Defensive Player of the Year, we got T.J. Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That one was a lot more easier to choose than the other two. What else do I have to say besides T.J. Watt tying the single season number of sacks in a single season? The whole record, he tied Michael Strahan for the most in a single season. And then moving on, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Ja'Marr Chase. Another pretty easy one to pick, even though Mac Jones was probably in the running for a good part of the season. I think Chase pretty definitively has run away with the award this past December. And once again, he set the new record of receiving yards by a rookie wide receiver, and that was surpassing his former LSU teammate Justin Jefferson, who did it in 2020, the very year before this one by Ja'Marr Chase. So I'm going to give it to Ja'Marr Chase. Just like how I will mention I also highly campaigned giving the Offensive Rookie of the Year to Justin Jefferson over Justin Herbert. And that's no disrespect to Herbert, but I just think the numbers that the wide receivers are putting up are just so dominant to their position, and just relative to how we're like Mac Jones and Justin Herbert per se are good, but not at the pinnacle in some stat categories. So that's why I'm going with the wide receiver over the quarterback, even though the quarterback usually gets more weight because of his position. So then let's move on to Defensive Rookie of the Year. I have Micah Parsons, and again that one was probably actually the easiest to pick. I think I'm not even sure who my runner-up would be for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Maybe Patrick Surtain of the Broncos, but I think you just have to give it to Parsons with just the amount of impact he completely put to this Dallas Cowboys defense, and just how versatile he showed as well to be as a linebacker and as a pass rusher. So I'm going with him. Comeback Player of the Year was, again, a little pretty tough one to choose, but I went with Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. The thing that made it harder was just the fact that I don't think anyone specifically had a quote unquote comeback season, as at least in my definition of the word comeback. Because usually, especially if you look at previous recipients like Alex Smith and Ryan Tannehill, their careers looked like they were projected to be in a much different direction until they had their respective seasons. Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow is only in his sophomore season this year, but he is also recovering from a torn ACL, and that's definitely and usually the comeback player of the year also goes to someone who's faced significant adversity, whether that's injury or not. I also considered Dak Prescott for this award, but I ended up going with Burrow just because I think he's even better than he was before suffering that torn ACL, and I think he has probably even had a just as good, if not a better season than Dak Prescott. So I'm going to give the edge to Burrow for that. And then for the Coach of the Year, we got Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots. Very tough to choose between him and Mike Vrabel, as well as Rich uh, Bisaccia of the Raiders. But I ended up going with Belichick because I think he made the biggest overall turnaround compared to last season. I know the Titans had been dealing with so many injuries, and Vrabel's leadership still kept them to the number one seed. I know the Raiders have also had to overcome tremendous obstacles and hurdles over the course of this season. But I think I just have to go with Belichick for the turnaround he's given, and I just think he's also a better coach than Vrabel and Bisaccia anyway. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And then lastly, assistant coach of the year, I have Dan Quinn of the Dallas Cowboys. He's the defensive coordinator. And this one was a little harder to pick just based on considering previous seasons where I usually that award always goes to like if someone had a completely transcending offense or a transcending defense compared to the rest of the teams in the NFL. That award almost always went to that specific coordinator. Take Greg Roman in 2019 or Vic Fangio in 2018. That was the offensive coordinator of the Ravens and the defensive coordinator of the Bears, respectively. Just that offense and that defense was just insurmountably better compared to the rest of the teams in the NFL. I just think this year we don't have an offense or a defense that was like that. So the reason why I chose Dan Quinn was again because of turnaround, like I talked about with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. The Dallas Cowboys defense was atrocious last season, whereas this year it's been one of the biggest impacts to their game, and it's been one of the biggest positive impacts, I should probably specify, and that's also one of the biggest reasons why they're here in the playoffs again. I just think they've been the biggest turnaround defense in the entire NFL, and I don't think there's been a bigger turnaround in an offense either. So in the end, I am going with Dan Quinn. And so he is the assistant coach of the year for me. So now, without further ado, let's now go to my actual playoff predictions. So starting at the wild card round, we have the Las Vegas Raiders visiting the Cincinnati Bengals. This one was kind of tough for me to predict because both teams, in my opinion, are kind of in somewhat of a similar situation in which I don't think many expected either of these teams to be in the playoffs, yet they both definitely exceeded our expectations, and both of them are also here for rather different reasons. On the other hand, we had and I think just Joe Burrow's ascension is definitely probably. I think that's and as well as Jamar Chase's ascension. I'd say I think those are definitely the two biggest assets to the Bengals' successful season this year. For the Raiders, I can say it's definitely probably a combo of Derek Carr's leadership as well as Rich Bisaccia helping steer the team in the right direction after again a ton of hurdles as I had previously mentioned, and also the fact that their defense has also been a lot better with pass rushing, and not to mention we had some breakouts like Hunter Renfrow as well. So I think also from what I've seen, I think a lot of people have been choosing the Bengals for this matchup. But this is really a lot harder for me to predict because I really think these two teams match up very well towards each other. So, and in the end, I am actually going to be picking the Raiders for this matchup. I really think they're just a team that's destined to keep going with their season. And I just think that was kind of evidence on Sunday night. There's just a team that just never goes away. Like they're just a team with 9 lives I think that's the best way I can put it. And on top of that, I think just Derek Carr is just on the best way I can put it, I think he's just on this mission that no other quarterback in the NFL is having, at least something that's kind of reflected in the same thing that Carr has done this season. I just don't think they're going to be going away yet. I think Derek Carr will be able to match up better against the Bengals defense than Joe Burrow will against the Raiders defense. And I think while the Bengals are definitely a team that are going to be on the rise for the future, I think they're going to be a little bit raw to start this wild card. So I have to say I'm not confident with this pick. I think this is a coin flip, but I am leaning toward the Las Vegas Raiders for this matchup. So next we have the Patriots at the Bills. This one was, I'd say, a little easier to predict, even though both teams, I believe they both split this season. I think I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they split this season. But I do think the Bills are definitely the better team in this matchup. I also think the Patriots are a little raw, despite having Bill Belichick and his longtime experience. I just don't think Mac Jones is going to be ready to advance so significantly far into the playoffs, if that makes sense. I just think the Bills are in a much better position to make a run, and I'm going to be going with them to win this matchup. So now to the Sunday games, starting at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, we have the Eagles visiting the Buccaneers. And this one was also pretty easy to pick. The Eagles did not beat a single team with a winning record this season, and that's not to write them off. They've been also a rather fun team to watch, even though I can't stand them. Again, Cowboys fan, I'm sorry. Jalen Hurts has definitely been a very fun player to watch this season, regardless of team. They've also had a very good offensive line. They've also had some nice contributions in the defense, especially with Darius Slay rebounding after a couple of shaky seasons lately. But then, on the other hand, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have Tom Brady. You don't have the whole 9 yards because the Buccaneers are dealing with a handful of injuries at their defense and at their receiving core. So they are definitely more depleted than they could have been this season. I don't think they're as good as they were in last year's playoffs, or I don't think they're going to be as good as they were. That's not to mean I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl. They very well can. I just think they have a weaker team entering this playoffs, but I do think they will still be able to knock down the Eagles relatively easier. And I think I'm definitely more confident in that matchup compared to the previous two. So now moving on, we have the 49ers visiting my Dallas Cowboys. And this one was definitely a little bit tougher to choose. The Cowboys have been a little inconsistent lately. I know they have had a couple blowout wins, but that was also against a lot of their division rivals. And while the Eagles one may seem convincing, they were also playing a lot of their backups. So I don't think this is going to be as I'm not sure. I'm just not sure if I'm ready to call them a powerhouse like I think I've seen some other people call them. And I also kind of feel that way just because as we saw in their matchup with the Arizona Cardinals, they just look really flat to me. So I just don't know if I trust them enough to confidently make them having a big run, but they very well can, and God knows I want them to do it. So I have my fingers crossed for that. Moving on to the 49ers, however, I like their defense a lot in this matchup. I do think their pass rush will create some difficulties for Dak Prescott, but I think the Cowboys defense is ultimately going to win this game for the Cowboys, and I do think they are going to suffocate Jimmy Garoppolo a lot. And the 49ers do not do well when he is making turnovers. So I don't think the Cowboys are going to win this one in as convincing fashion as some of their previous regular season games. I do think they will win. And then we have, as our last Sunday game, we have the night game with the Steelers visiting the Chiefs. Previously, the Chiefs blew out the Steelers this season, and while that may be a harbinger for what's to come, you don't want to take the Steelers lightly. They've been able to win when they weren't expected to in many cases this year. But with that being said, I'll just cut to the chase. I think this is going to be Ben Roethlisberger's final game. I'm glad to see him get an extra playoff game, but I just don't think they're going to be able to have any answers for the Kansas City Chiefs whatsoever. And then lastly, we have the Cardinals visiting the Rams. And this one is probably the most interesting matchup, except for maybe the Raiders and the Bengals. And even though this is a this is an NFC West matchup, these two teams have been very unpredictable and I don't want to say inconsistent because they were both very good teams pretty much for the entire season, but they've just been, I think erratic is a good word to describe both of these teams. You just don't know what you're going to get in a given week with them. So, as for who I like more in this matchup, I also think this one is a coin toss. Both of these teams lost in week 18 when I think they were probably both favored, although I did have the 49ers being the Rams, but I thought that was also somewhat of an upset. So, who do I pick here? Although I already know who I pick because I'm reciting this I'm reciting this. I already have the slideshow already done, so I'm not gonna. Let's forget that question. I have. I'll just say it. The team I like more is actually the Arizona Cardinals. I have them taking the road win. I have Kyler Murray out dueling Matthew Stafford in this matchup. I just trust Murray much more than I trust Stafford. That's just the one. That's the biggest reason why I'm leaning towards Arizona. Although again, this can easily go either way. All right, so now let's move to the divisional round. We don't have the schedule specifically out for the divisional round yet, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing the AFC first and then the NFC second, because that's what they're going to be doing in the NFC, in the championship round. So first to begin, I'm going to be starting with the Raiders visiting the Tennessee Titans. I think the Titans will win this one rather probably easily, even though I said Derek Carr is on a mission. I do think that if they're going to be making somewhat of a Cinderella run, for lack of a better way to put it, I'm not trying to write off the Raiders. I think Cinderella run kind of sort of makes them seem like they're an underdog and a team that shouldn't be as far as they are, but they are very well a very good playoff team. But I do think the Titans are going to be able to win this one convincingly, and I do think the Raiders are a team that if they win a couple of games, they're going to lose in a rather bigger margin, in my opinion. I also believe the Titans will be getting Derrick Henry back for this matchup, and that's going to be making all the difference in the world, as everyone knows. So I just don't think the Raiders are going to be able to stop that. All right, so then we got the Bills visiting the Chiefs. This one is a little bit. This one was rather tougher to predict. I think these were the two teams most people predicted to be in the Super Bowl representing the AFC. But probably people were probably split between the Bills and the Chiefs. So I'm gonna be picking the Chiefs for this one just because Patrick Mahomes is undoubtedly a better quarterback than Josh Allen. And another big key asset is the Chiefs defense has really impressed me lately. They have really stepped up their game and been far more consistent. And I think that's going to be a big. I think that's going to be the most crucial. I think that's going to be their X factor for this playoffs. How well their defense plays, and I do think it's going to be as good as we have previously been seeing. I don't think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are going to be able to outscore the Chiefs just because I think the Chiefs are going to be able to hold them. I just think the Chiefs have the Chiefs. I feel like just have had a better offense and a better defense than the Bills lately, and that's. I know that sounds like a bold statement because the Bills' defense is spectacular, but I think the Chiefs are just the hotter team here. I'm going with the Chiefs. All right, going to the NFC, we got the Cardinals and the Packers, and oh boy, I would love to see this matchup because as everyone knows, these two teams have playoff matches that are almost never forgotten. At least that was when Larry Fitzgerald was still playing. That's the only thing that's missing, and that would be missing in this matchup if this is what we were to have. Ugh, man, I miss Larry Fitzgerald. Okay, but regardless, Cardinals at Packers. I think the Packers would win this one. Aaron Rodgers has been on a tear. As I said, I think he deserves MVP for the second year in a row. And again, I don't think the Cardinals have matched up. At least lately, they did beat the Cowboys, but they're just too inconsistent for me to think they're going to be able to outduel the Packers in Green Bay here. I just think the Cardinals are too erratic, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to know how to win this or not going to know. He does know how to win this matchup. He knows how to advance into the NFC Championship. He hasn't been able to advance to a Super Bowl lately, but he knows how to do that too. I just think this is another. I guess I would say this is probably another mission with Aaron Rodgers, like I had previously described with Derek Carr, but only because I think. But this is with different context than Carr, though. This is a mission for Rodgers only because I think this is his last run with the Green Bay Packers. And I think this is going to be the year he's putting in his chips more than ever. So I expect this, and I think this Packers team, not to mention, is also better than last year's, particularly with defense. We know Kevin King got absolutely torched last year. I don't think that's going to be the case this coming. Or I wouldn't write that off, but with Jair Alexander coming back, David Bakhtiari coming back, and Zadarius Smith Albert coming back from injuries, I think the Packers are just too good of a team for the Cardinals to handle here. So then we have the Cowboys at the Buccaneers. This is definitely the hardest one for me to predict out of my 4 divisional round matchups because, again, the Cowboys have shown multiple flashes over the course of the regular season that they can be a powerhouse, but they just haven't been able to solidify that over a sustained period, in my opinion. Like teams as like such as what we've seen with teams like the Chiefs and the Packers. But that being said, they are definitely the far more healthier team than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers have lost Chris Godwin. They've lost Shaquille Barrett. I think they're still missing Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy Bunting. I might be wrong on that, but I think they're both still out after missing pretty much all the season. Antonio Brown is obviously not there anymore. And yeah, they're missing a whole lot of their pieces that were big with their Super Bowl run last year, especially with Shaquille Barrett, in my opinion. But with that being said, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. He absolutely knows how to manage the game, especially when he's in a roster situation like this one. And even though the Cowboys only lost by 1 point even when they were leading with 1 minute to go in the fourth quarter, I think the Buccaneers won that game kind of more convincingly. The Buccaneers just happened to have a couple red zone turnovers where they could have easily scored more points. So, but with that being said, the Cowboys can definitely win this matchup, and I don't think I can't say that's not a bias take because I am a Cowboys fan, and that's just bias. It's just natural with it. But I don't think that's an outrageous take. That's a better way for me to put it. I don't think it would be an outrageous take at all for the Cowboys to win this game. I definitely do think they can win this game, but I definitely think they can, but I don't think they will. I'm going to give this match, unfortunately, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So again, hope I'm wrong, but the 2 times Cowboys have been in the playoffs, I have predicted exactly the round that they exited the playoffs. So hopefully my streak comes to an end. And when it comes to an end, and hopefully that's not because they lose to the 49ers. I'll put it that way. Let's hope my streak comes to an end because the Cowboys finally make an NFC Championship game, which they haven't done since the fucking 90s. All right, so with that aside, we'll go to our AFC Championship with the Chiefs visiting the Titans. This one is also very hard to predict, and I would absolutely love to see a rematch of the 2020 AFC Championship. I think the Titans are definitely much more prepared and much more familiar with the situation that they're in now compared to what might have been somewhat of a Cinderella run that season, but they were also completely a better team than they were when they started the 2019-20 regular season. So I do think they were probably better than what their 6th seed would have said. So I think they're going to give a much better, but even then I still think they're going to give the Chiefs a tougher matchup than they did back then. And keep in mind the Titans also beat the Chiefs in the regular season. So this can really go either way in my opinion, but I am leaning toward the Chiefs for this one, unfortunately. I will root for the Titans if they are in the AFC Championship. I want to see Derrick Henry in a Super Bowl, without a doubt. I want to see him continue a Hall of Fame career. At least that's the current pace he's been on, even though he kind of was a bit of a later bloomer. I want to see Derrick Henry start writing his illustrious career, but I don't think and while that can still very well happen, he might very well add some chapters with these 2 games that I have in this tournament, but I just don't think I just don't like the Titans enough to outduel the Chiefs here. I just don't think Ryan Tannehill is gonna be able. I just think Ryan Tannehill is a lot more prone to mistakes, and I think Patrick Mahomes has figured out how to elude the mistakes he was making earlier this season. And then I just think the Chiefs defense will also be better than the Titans defense. Although again, the Titans defense is pretty good, but I just like the Chiefs team as a whole more. And then in the NFC Championship, we have a 2020 rematch with the Buccaneers visiting the Green Bay Packers. And I think this time we will get a different result, unlike the same result with the AFC Championship. I think the Packers will be able to advance to the Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers' perhaps last run with the Green Bay Packers. I just don't think the Buccaneers are going to be in the Super Bowl with the amount of injuries they have, and I don't. And if they beat the Cowboys, I just can't see them beating the Packers. I just think I also would want to say I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to capitalize on all the injuries that the Buccaneers have in the exact same way Tom Brady capitalized on all the injuries the Packers had in the NFC Championship, like how Tom Brady repetitively torched Kevin King. I think we might see Aaron Rodgers repetitively torch some of the backup Buccaneers corners here, and I don't think the Buccaneers are going to be able to pressure Rodgers as much as they could have, especially in comparison to what they did to him as well as Patrick Mahomes in last year's playoffs. So I just think the Buccaneers are just missing too many pieces to make a Super Bowl this season. So with that being said, I have the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs in my Super Bowl. I believe that is also what I predicted in my midseason predictions. I could be wrong on that, but remembering from the top of my head, that was what I predicted, and I might have even predicted that in my off-season predictions. I didn't review them before I made this video, but I really think that's what I predicted, and I'm still sticking with that. But I might have. I'm not sure if I picked the same winner in those matchups though. I think I picked the Chiefs in my offseason with the Packers in my midseason. So who am I going to take this time? Well, we have the Chiefs making the Super Bowl for the third consecutive season, and we have the Packers making the Super Bowl for the first time since 2010. I think I've also repeatedly picked the Packers to make the Super Bowl in some of my, at least in some of my recent playoff prediction videos, and obviously that hasn't become the case. But I think this is their best team to be able to do that. Now, will that be enough to beat the Chiefs, though? Well, I'm not exactly sure about that. But I do think the Packers can very well win this matchup. Again, I would say this is an absolute toss-up. This would be a phenomenal Super Bowl if we had it. It's a rematch of the very first Super Bowl in history. So we have the legacy factor, and we have the excitement factor, and we have the marketing factor, as we have probably the two of the best quarterbacks here in the NFL. At least in my opinion, I think pretty much everyone can agree it's between Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Tom Brady as the three top tier quarterbacks. But the team out of these two I'm leaning towards is the Kansas City Chiefs. I just don't trust the Packers enough to make it a whole Super Bowl run here, unfortunately. Just the amount of... Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has caused a lot of drama, but I think he'll be able to at least put that out of the way for the playoffs. But somehow, I just don't know what it is that the Packers do, but they just always fall victim to their own worst enemy. It's come seemingly pretty much every playoffs. I just trust the Chiefs a lot more. They've already won a Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers back in 2019. They'll be hungry for a rebound after a pretty awful 2020 Super Bowl against the Buccaneers. I just like the Chiefs more, and I am going with the Kansas City Chiefs as your 2021-2022 Super Bowl champions. So if you made it this far, congratulations. You have made it to the end of this video, and I couldn't thank you enough so much for sticking around this whole 30 minutes. I hope you enjoyed my predictions. I hope you at least didn't find them outrageously bad. But if you didn't, that's okay. Everyone has their own opinion, and I absolutely invite everyone to leave their predictions in the comment section down below. Again, thank you very much for sticking through this entire video. I hope you all had wonderful holidays, and I hope you're all excited for the playoffs as much as I am. And I hope because I feel very confident that this will be a very fun playoffs. Although I might be saying that because the Cowboys are in the Super Bowl and they're in the playoffs instead of the Super Bowl. So I'm definitely more excited than previous years, but I still think this is going to be a very good playoffs. We have a lot of intriguing matchups. We have a lot of intriguing teams. So without further ado, thank you again, and you have made it to the end of this video.